We're live, love.
Oh, hello. How's everyone doing this evening? Just join us in the chat room. First comment that's come through tonight. I can't connect my camera. Or oh, that was you earlier on. So how are
Yeah.
you? What sort of evening have you had?
Well, I've had a somewhat frustrating evening, as you know. However, I'm prepared to put all of that aside to enjoy myself with you and our lovely audience, the people that join us today. You know, it's going to be great.
And come
I
into the present moment.
I'm just writing a new pick a banner to go across the bottom. What do you want us to say? Join us if you
Feel moved, touched, and inspired. Now,
Woo!
I would
Moved.
like to say that I don't like the graphics very much. You've taken a lot of effort to make that incredible spiritual Portugal setup, and then we've got that rather hideous black and white "join us in the chat room" thing, as though somebody's
Yeah,
come along with
going.
those Dymo printers from the 70s and stuck that on the screen.
Yep, that's why it's gone.
Okay,
And I don't know why my banner's coming out that colour, because in my theme,
that looks much nicer, doesn't it?
or that, which
Oh,
one do you like?
beautiful, very nice, very nice. Just warming up here, everybody, as though no one will you know that thing, sing like no one's listening, broadcast like no one's watching, which is what we're doing tonight. I don't think Mrs. M can hear me anymore now because she's taking the headphones off.
I could
Anyway,
still hear you. You've got such
I was
great
just
that,
projection. I was just telling everybody how awesome you were. So
oh,
I got a little VT to roll, if I may. That's if the gremlins haven't got the better of us. So I've got a few bits of video to roll and a few comments to share. Thank you very much, everybody, actually, for your comments on previous shows, which will include now Saturday's impromptu "What is it to be a human being?" Some great comments came in. Oh, hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Jacqueline. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And this is the theme that I have proposed for this evening: sage or beige. And there he goes. This is a
I
this is
love
a
that.
nice bit of video, huh? Let me do that one more time. So pleased am I with it. Let's just do the roll VT. There we go. So perhaps tonight we can discuss the art of getting older, aging, becoming an elder, saging or beiging. Which are you? Not Beijing as in the capital of China. But that said, the Chinese seem to have quite an interesting approach to aging. They respect their elders. You see them doing Tai Chi in the park. I'm sure there's more to it than that. Yeah, let us know your thoughts on getting older and aging. It struck me that this is a rich theme for me. I was interested in what it was to be an elder about 3 years ago now. Got quite interested in that and rites of passage, and how actually quite a lot of old people are a bit of an embarrassment, as are young people as well. But because there's not many role models, or we expect so little in many ways of elders, don't we? And they deliver in kind. And given that there isn't much growing up for anyone anymore in the world, it's no wonder that at the top end that doesn't happen either. And that's no disrespect to any individuals. It just seems to be more of a societal trend that actually a lot of elders seem to want to be like teenagers, and they don't want to get old. They don't want to die. No one wants to die, do they? But there is this fear, and the fear creates a certain kind of way of being. And I just think there's more magnificence and power and glory available to elders to draw down, to pull in, and be a remarkable example, and show us the way. To say it's great here. My body might not be as fit as it used to be, but I tell you what, other benefits come. And like I said in the show notes, I can't remember who it was, but they said to me that, oh, age doesn't come alone. All the aches and pains come as well. That's if that's if you can remember anything as well, and you haven't shit yourself, or so, all these sorts of things that people. So, excuse my French. I'm having a rather unguarded evening tonight. But you get the gist. It's not a pretty picture, is it? And actually, I think that's perhaps a sad thing. And we could all do this better together, I think, is what I'm proposing, and what I would like to talk about with your help this evening. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's moved, touched, or inspired anybody. But what do you think about that? Because you were quite concerned, weren't you, that I was talking about getting older, as though that wasn't happening. Are you in a bit of denial about me getting older?
No. I think when I first found out that you were going to be a granddad, I was really excited for you because you're a granddad, and at the same time, all of a sudden, I realised I was married to a granddad, and all of a sudden, it made me consider who I must be, because in relationship to you, you're a granddad, and it's different. Like you might think of your partners as being young whippersnappers, and then all of a sudden there's this little thing attached to their name, or this kind of extra role that marks them out as somebody with some extra years. And there's a decade between us, believe it or not, although I think we both look of a similar age thanks to your wonderful Asian genes and thanks to my like thin skin and everything. I think we look of a similar age, but there's a decade between us, and you're like 10 years older than me. And so that does play on my mind a little bit from time to time.
Yeah.
And so considering that you're getting older, it doesn't remind me that I'm getting older, although I'd be really keen to hear from other people that have got a bit of an age difference. Like, do you feel that having a relationship with somebody older or younger changes the way you feel about your own age?
Ooh,
I'm kind of keen
okay.
because I feel like I've aged a little bit since I've been with you, but then I have also just had children since I've been with you as well. So there's all
Yes,
sorts
well, I had a lot to do with that, and it might be like bad apple syndrome, mightn't it? Or
of
how they put young kids in with a class of older kids to hothouse them and make them smarter. I'm not saying that's happened for you. I might have taken you downhill a bit by dragging you into a relationship with
Or
me.
I might have made you a bit younger. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. No, you kept me sprightly. I mean, certainly having 3 kids under 10 is a good recipe for that. And
Yeah.
I was thinking that actually context is a lot to do with this, isn't it? Because you can change your context. And I remember showing my dad around. My dad's no longer with us, but when he was, I don't know, a good 15 years away from his demise, his passing, he came to have a look at an old folks' home in the town where I lived in Sheffield. And we walked around, and sadly, it did, it had all the hallmarks of an old folks' home that people actually really struggle with, which is it looked like a prison. It had a certain kind of smell, and people were definitely in the waiting room to go. And that's quite a sad thing, I think. And again, no disrespect to individuals, people who work in old folks' homes are absolutely doing their best. I've worked in care, in working in a hostel with people with learning disabilities. It's institutional, and it's really hard to work against the system as an individual. And these are cultural things I'm talking about. So with no disrespect to anybody that I say this, but I just thought my dad said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, if you go in here, you will go downhill. This is," and he was not like the people in there, but I suspected that if he did go in there, he would be very soon. And so there's definitely a context thing, isn't there, going on with this? And we've moved away to a new country, which I think has been a good influence on how we see ourselves and how we're being in life.
I completely understand with yours and your dad's sentiment, because when I was ill with chronic fatigue syndrome and part of a chronic fatigue syndrome study, I was at Wareham Hospital, and I was in a room with all these other people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and people were wheeled in on stretchers and in wheelchairs, and I was told this is what will happen to you at some point. And I was thinking,
Was that quite a good incentive to get well?
yeah, a bit like how you were saying to your dad, if you move in here, you will match the vibration of that. I was very sort of reticent about that.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few people joining us tonight. Should we say hello?
Fantastic. Absolutely right.
I was a bit worried about how big Jacqueline Branco's message came up, and I think it's because of the banner style I've got. No disrespect to you, Jacqueline, but it came up a lot bigger than usual, so I'm just testing this
And why
out.
not? And why not?
So this looks a bit bigger than normal, doesn't it? Does that look
Well, I'm
the
a
right?
bit concerned now about the ticker tape at the bottom. Join us if feel moved, touched, and inspired.
Oh, a bit of a typo there. Let me
Yeah.
take.
Okay. All right. Well, bon night, Cindy B. Lovely to have your company again. Definitely part of the Vibe tribe here. I think
The
tuned
vibe
in to.
tribe. I love that. That's nice. Yes,
Yeah.
hello. And we've got a boy night from Doreen. Is it Rice or Race? How do
I
you
go with
pronounce
Rays. I go with Rays, as in Daniel Rays, who I know. But
it? Oh,
Doreen may well prefer to give us a phonetic pronunciation on that,
that
so
would
we can
be
get it
really
right.
good. Yeah, it would be good to get it right, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yes, we did have a great blue moon evening. Thank you. Jacqueline sharing with us, when someone gets close to Alzheimer's, then life takes a total change. Then you realize how life is. You lose that
Yeah.
person.
Well, that must be the most awful thing. Absolutely, an awful thing to have happen, Jacqueline. I don't know if that's an experience of yours, and that's going on for you. And yeah, how awful must that be? I don't know what else to say about that. And it must be a massive change. And yeah, that the person you know. I mean, I saw in I was in Leroy Merlin's, which is a DIY store here in Portugal. If you're outside the country, and I saw an older couple, and the gentleman had his wife's hand in his hand and was talking to her like a child. And as sad as it was beautiful too. I was so aware, or I was so projecting this sense of love that he had for his wife, who I think had dementia or Alzheimer's, and they'd gone out shopping, and he was saying to her, we've had a good day, haven't we? I was so touched. I feel it's the same now, just talking about it, how difficult it must be, and how in that I could see, and just easy for me, a small snapshot of their life. I'm not in touch with their daily life, and how challenging that must be for them, or for him especially. But it was incredible as well to see his love in action, with his wife there as he led around the store by her hand. It was really beautiful. But day to day, I can understand that completely, checking how difficult that would be. And it's part of the whole fear, isn't it? I mean, it's part of what's not helping with aging and elders. The fear of that, because if you listen to, I mean, I heard the other day a cancer advert, and it came from the position, and I know they do this with dementia and Alzheimer's as well now, and I think it's part of the pharmaceutical lobby. But this cancer advert said, if you're one of the two of us who is going to get cancer. It's like, hold on a minute. I get it, statistically true, but it's not helping. That kind of positioning, marketing, whatever it is, awfulness, as far as I'm concerned, is not helping. And this is all part of the picture at the moment, isn't it? There are so many downsides that seem to be focused on. And that's what I was hoping to talk about tonight. I'm not Pollyannering this. I know it's also there is a hard side to getting older. Your body's wearing out. It's a machine, and there's on the physical level, and there are things you can do to prolong its usefulness, service, if you like, whilst as it's going round. I mean, part of this is, I suppose, the way we see it in linear terms, going from 0 to 70 years and 10 or more now in the modern age. But if we saw that differently, it might help, mightn't it? And the body is definitely going, well, depending on who you're talking to, it's going round and round, isn't it, in a spiral, and the years pile up. 1 year becomes 2, and on it goes, and everyone's getting older. Even the baby who's just been born is getting older, but it just seems more prescient, doesn't it, and poignant and profound once you're past the 50 point, possibly, or middle age, where you think, okay, maybe there's less years rather than more ahead of me now of my life. I'm into the second half, and it's a diminishing thing. And we have all these rational and linear type and two-dimensional thoughts about aging and getting old, and the fear of these diseases. And I just would, I'm not trying to wish those away or pretend they don't happen, but there's so much more else, I'm sure, to this than just those things which we seem to focus on as a culture. Surely, to goodness, there must be more to it that we could celebrate and extract or coax out of people. So they're not just people waiting to get ill or waiting to die, which I mean, honestly, in the same way that, we used that quote before from Andrew Harvey, the media has us as sex-starved, hungry animals dying. That's especially poignant, isn't it? When you get old, you take away the sex starved bit possibly, but you're still a hungry animal dying. And that's how the media would have us. That's how the rational mind would have us. And there's so much more to us than that. I'm certain of that. And I would like to be part of a movement to have that brought out, to have that celebrated, to have that be available to people. So totally understand, Jacqueline, and I hope you don't feel that I was making too much light of the difficulties that some people face as they get older. I was just hoping to draw attention to a bigger line, like we've said before, a bigger line next to this difficult line of aging as we currently have it.
Let's say hello to Cindy B, and she's sharing, at some point, if we're lucky, age becomes an attitude. I would agree with that. There are some people that wear it well, aren't there? And we know some quite sassy, independent rock stars of elders. And I wouldn't want to say elderly because they're definitely not elderly, but there's something in the attitude
something about that word.
Well, like your mum, for instance. Your mum is 83, and apart from her kind of very sore knee, she's a bit of a rock star, isn't she?
Well, she wore it out with her activities, didn't she?
I mean, in the 11 years we've been together, I mean, she's had something like 20 odd holidays, and all of them like long distance.
And not to Blackpool. She hasn't worn her knee out going up and down the Blackpool Tower. She's been all over the world, hasn't she? Africa, India, Far East, Australia. Yeah, absolutely. She's a rock star.
Yeah, I mean, she's amazing. Gary's joining us tonight, and he's sharing
Hey up, Garvo.
candid with us. So I'm a confusing mix of having the maturity of a 12-year-old, but the spirit of something much more ancient and sensible.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And then you're sharing, Linda is 11 years older than me, and when we were younger it wasn't that noticeable. However, as time marches on, sometimes I do have to be more sympathetic and understanding before I make what I consider to be normal daily decisions. I wonder what that's like for you, Gary, and how open you and Linda can be about that. I'm guessing because you've been together so long, I would imagine that you've had conversations about this, ahead of time. But I wonder how you negotiate that, because it must be very difficult, if I'm imagining if Carl started to notice that I was getting older and that he was starting to treat me slightly differently. I imagine that would take a little bit of getting used to. I wonder how you navigate that.
I'm pretty sure how we might do it and how the Austins do it is probably with some humour. I imagine they use humour. Yeah, I can hear them. Knowing them a little bit as I do. I'm sure there's some humour in the mix there, and some authenticity and honesty. They're down to earth, lovely people, and I'm sure. But then I don't want to. You answer that, Gary, not me.
Yeah.
Mark is here as well tonight. Good evening, Colin. Good evening to you, Mark. Lovely to have your company. Doreen, well, it's Doreen Rice or Reish. I didn't get it right, did I? I wasn't. I didn't. I went with the kind of like the Portuguese Reish, but I didn't have so much of a sh sound on it. I answered to either, and I'm going with the Portugal version now. When in Rome. Now, given that you're here tonight with us, Doreen, and you very kindly shared these beautiful videos of, didn't we talk like 3 episodes ago about the love of, and I'm trying to find maybe you could do us the great honor of sharing all these filias that you indulge in, the love of the sound of trees, the moon bathing. There was a little set of them that were all very natural and rather marvelous and very fitting for spiritual Portugal here. But just to set the scene, here is the view from Doreen's window, a lover of trees and the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. So I've got a couple of videos for you. Here's the first. I must say I had a little moment there myself with the sound in those
Mhm.
trees. What a lovely flat as
Yeah,
well, or house, or first floor of the house there, Doreen. It's beautiful.
I
Okay.
was feeling that that energy you get when you're kind of in the shade, but also the breeze of trees, and you
Yeah.
can actually feel the energy of them.
Yeah.
Wow, that felt so nice.
Yeah, good.
Thank
And
you.
here's the next one. Yeah. A little touch of the leaves there as well. Very nice indeed. And I should be able to find it if you can't do that for us there, Doreen. But lovely comments from the human being episode. If I can share those with you, just to catch up before we go back to our discussion on aging. And sorry, yeah, before we go back to that, we were talking about what it is to be a human being. Am I all right doing these for a minute, Mrs. M?
Mm.
Great show, says Simon, who was tuned in on Saturday. Went outside after to meditate under the full moon. The clouds moved in, though, but then there was a silent thunderstorm, no rain. Wow. And the sky was
Mm.
flashing,
Mm.
color in the middle before the clouds took on a red hue. Strange but true.
Do you
Fantastic.
remember that
Yeah.
storm we had in Devon that had noise and lightning and no rain? It was
Yeah. So there
very
you go.
bizarre.
The rainless storms. So
Mhm.
blessed with one of those was Simon. David Dawson sent us this comment today. Had watched the Saturday evening show and said, "Funny, right after listening to this, I read this in one of my books. Consider the difference between an animal and a human being. An animal eats food, sleeps, and performs various other activities during the course of its life. A human being also eats food, sleeps, etc., but has one distinctive feature, the capacity to know that he is acting, whereas an animal performs various actions without knowing it. There is also a distinct difference between various stages of human development. All humans think, yet some who are more aware are able to watch themselves thinking. I think that's this lot here. They are able to stand outside themselves and watch the thinking process occurring within their mind. Definitely this
Mhm.
lot. This is the aim of breath awareness, to continually remind you of your ability to be aware of your consciousness and to be a witness or a spectator of your mental and physical activities. Breath awareness is an essential part of Kriya Yoga. Thank you. So,
What a
David, that's, yeah,
fantastic,
beautiful.
excerpt. That was lovely.
Yeah, and our mate Thunder Duck, definition of being human: enjoying the ride and helping others. Can't go far wrong with that, can you? Life is not a journey. Sorry, I got that wrong. Life is a journey, not a destination. And he also adds that he enjoys spirituality through music as well. So thanks for the comments on there. I don't know where those other comments are though, Doreen, about the various loves that you have of wind and leaves and the moon. So I'll have a little fertile about and see if I can find them. So thank you for chipping in tonight, and thank you for letting us play your video. Okay, so yeah, what are we thinking about aging? Are you a sage or are you just going to turn beige? I wonder. Any further thoughts for you, Mrs. M, on this
I think it's an opportunity for us to be magnificent.
as we get
Um,
older?
yeah, absolutely. It's interesting what you were saying about wanting to become an elder. As you know, I've got an ongoing or enduring relationship with my homeopath. You know, it's like he's
Oh, sorry.
he's
I'm
my
trying to find the comments.
he's my go-to person, just to kind of, sometimes when you just need a bit of privacy and you just want to test your thoughts with somebody.
Yeah,
And I've been saying to him for quite a few years, I see my role as being an elder in training.
yeah,
I'm not there yet, I'm not old enough to have all that, but I do see that as my role. I love older people who volunteer, like when they finish work, who get involved in stuff and are useful. And I don't think we need to do that, but something about the will of their life, and they have purpose. And I
yeah.
would like to feel that as I age, it is with purpose and vigor, and I can't imagine I'll be any other
Bigger.
way, to be fair. I'd be very
Yeah,
surprised if I ever stop working or ever stop coaching. But like our friends Mike and Dee, I love, Dee's approach.
Yeah.
She's finished work, but she carries on doing what she was doing anyway.
Sprightly is
Yeah,
yes, is the word to
an absolutely
describe Dee, isn't it?
vital part. She's a vital
Yeah.
part of the community,
Yeah.
and it doesn't go unnoticed. It's important.
Yeah.
So she definitely a sage. That's where I'd like to be.
All right. Well, that's what I was asking earlier on. The thing about age never comes alone, implying to us and inferring in us the commonly held idea that decay and decrepitude, that's a word Mike used when I last saw him actually, are a certainty for us. However, what gifts might aging bring? What greatness might we realize in facing and embracing getting older and bolder as the years add up? What chance do we have in a world obsessed by the physical and addicted to youth of enjoying all that life has to offer in the autumn and winter of our years? Or are we doomed to avoidance, denial, and anxiety around the maturation of our species? It can't be all bad, can it? It was the question I asked. Paul Richards said, age is but a number. Like most good wines, we get better with age, plus a lot of experience that the tapestry of life has treated us to. Interesting. I like the school of growing old disgracefully. There's no use in worrying, just do it. And I think Andrew's right. Andy's right, isn't he? I mean, you can't not get old. It's going to happen anyway, isn't it? Or your body appears to go through time, or the years add up, and there's an amount of wear and tear that the body faces that can be attenuated by good care or so on. But it seems to have a finite life. But then again, you're on the edge of testing and wanting to challenge that, aren't you? You think it can be completely renewed?
Yeah, I've heard that if you go through certain things, if you change your lifestyle somewhat and your belief systems, by the time you're 50, and even if you're in your 50s, that seems to be a bit of a cutoff point. But you can actually start to regenerate and not turn back time, but stop the aging process. Obviously you're not you will still get older, but you'll be really, really slowing down the aging process,
Right.
in terms of what it's doing to your body. So I've heard that from quite a few different sources. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of that is down to, what we think of as healthcare and what we think of as dietary recommendations may not actually be what we should be doing. We've got these ideas as to, and again, this fits into the whole question last week of what is it to be human? Well, we've got these ideas that we've got definite ideas about how our health is, and how we manage our health, and what the immune system is, and this, that, and the other. And I actually think in more recent generations, we've learnt to distrust our immune system rather than celebrate it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think actually that is one of the most debilitating things we could have ever done in our society, because once you lose touch with the sacredness of how your body works, you're kind of separating yourself from something very intrinsic to do with your survival. So I'm always very keen to research that. So I'm fascinated by it. I read something really poignant the other day, and I can't remember the exact quantities it was talking about. And I will find it out for our next show. So if you like the cut of where this reference is going, I will find out the actual science behind it. But I read that there was a longevity study, and within this study, a single cell of a chicken was isolated to see how it would age. And the single cell, you left it in a normal environment and it died soon after. But this, like one particular cell, was isolated and put in really pristine water, and it was looked after. and it outlived the actual chicken itself. It carried on living. It lived for something like 25 years. And when it actually died, the cell died because the person that was carrying out the experiment, or, the next person along, or the next person, I mean, 25 years, you probably had quite a few people running that test. But like one day, the person that was supposed to be working on it didn't show up. And the cell died. But the idea.
No! Can you imagine?
No, I mean, could you imagine like that experiment had been going on for 25 years? I mean, I'd be a bit.
It's like being the family who have to look after the hamster at the end of term, and that
But I've
hamster.
been that person, haven't I? With the
You
guinea.
are that person, yeah. So you shouldn't be trusted with that cell either.
But yeah. So that was the first thing that I read, and that's quite incredible, because what that's talking about is hygiene theory as opposed to germ theory.
Yeah.
That if our cells are looked after and kept in pristine condition, then they don't age.
And this is in a laboratory, isn't it?
Yes.
And you see, the problem I've got with that, two problems.
Yeah.
One is, and it's not about me, but I will make it so for just a moment. One is, life is not a laboratory, and this is what the scientifically minded, where the mistake is, I think, of the scientific and rational mind, is in not, what's it called? What's that, panopticanism or something like that, where they don't recognize that the viewer is part of the experiment. So they have these abstracted theories of life, like preserving a bloody cell for 25 years. Well, what's the good of that ultimately, especially if some joker forgets to change the water or whatever they did?
Sorry, you've got to reel it in, because there's so much good for that. I mean, I'm not sharing that because I'm scared of aging. I just want to. I mean, I am coming to.
Well, that was my other thing. That was my other thing.
It's not because I'm coming to terms with my own aging. It's because, and I mentioned this in our last show. Every other creature seems to know its user manual. It seems to know what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to do it, and it does it. And they live full lives until they die, usually of natural causes, or they die because of us if we've somehow involved.
Yes. If we're in the mix, yes.
Yeah. In which case, their lives are significantly shorter. But I sense, and I've sensed this my whole life, that the user manual that we've been given is not the real one. It's like we've been told to put the wrong fuel in. It's like we've been told to put leaded in an unleaded vehicle.
Okay.
So we're not feeding ourselves the right things, and this is a cultural thing, and there's a lot of money behind that.
Oh yeah,
and I'm not goes on about diets particularly or anything like that. But I guess what I'd really like to know is, what is it like to live to my human potential? Now, I won't know what it's like to do that from birth.
The Hunzers, you look at the Hunzers. There are races around the world, aren't there, who have give us some clue to this. And
yes,
if it's a
lifestyle. And I know it's not possible to do that in Portugal, where they drink coffee and they've got a really acid diet full of carbs.
Sugar.
Yeah. But the thought of, I wonder what human potential would be like.
Yes.
And the rest of this, and I will share this very quickly, but we've got some really interesting comments coming in. And Jeff Granville, I want to thank you again for joining us today, because you were with me only a few hours ago, and I actually adore that. But with this experiment with the cell of the chicken, the other thing that came up is that apparently there is a proper ratio that exists with every other species apart from humans. And so again, that makes me go, hang on a sec. There's more to this than meets the eye. And so and I will find the source of it, and I will quote it in the next show. But
you know me and my sources. I don't want any fake news here. Thank you very much.
Well, what was said, and I might get it slightly wrong, but the gist of it is that there are proper ratios between lifespan and the length of time that it takes to reach puberty or reproduction age in each species.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So when you get to reproduction, like if that's 14 years, there is a proper ratio that means you need to live for, I don't know if it's like 3.8 times or 7 times or something like that. But every other species follows that.
Unless we interfere. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. And yet humans, We don't. And if we did observe that ratio, we would be living until we were something like 250 to 300 years old. Now, that's considerably different to our experience. And in fact, like the thought of living that long makes me go, because I just imagine that by the time I got to 70 or 80 or 90 or something like that, I wouldn't be able to enjoy my life. And sure, let me go.
That's a cultural imposition, though, isn't it? Of course, because of how
Yes.
we have it at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. But if there was, if we actually knew our user manual, then I would want to explore that. So anyway, that's me off.
Well, the Hunzas probably say that, don't they? When someone dies at 75 in the Hunza tribe, they, oh, he was taken before his time. He was cruelly cut down. Yeah, it's all relative. It's all relative.
Pristine water, with lots of minerals, really mineral
apricot kernels, yeah,
with biotriol.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna bang on about what did I call it, orthorexia again. That was going to be my second part. But why did the chicken cell cross the laboratory? So he wouldn't be forgotten by the lazy lab technician, and still he got overlooked that time. It's very difficult, says Gary, because this is going back to Mrs. A. Because of her rheumatoid arthritis, her mood and mobility can vary greatly. I'm sure pain is just affects your life, doesn't it, so much? Yes. I try to motivate her as best I can to overcome what she sees as her limitations. With this type of condition, it's important to keep as mobile as possible. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I just end up looking like a bully. Oh, tough call, Gary. Yeah, feeling it, man. Are we talking about homeopathy? Well, Louisa was a moment, like cures like kind of stuff. I guess that's true, isn't it? Yeah. Look up Samuel Hahnemann. Is that right for the skinny on that? I think
it's not always that easy to read. To be fair, like when I look up homeopathic literature or sort of evidence-based research, it's not reader friendly. You know, I think a lot of these websites need some kind of, this is in a nutshell, and this is how we apply it. It needs some context put to it.
Yeah, but, or simply, I mean, why not? You know, I'll tell you I've been in a probably 30 or so year research project with homeopathy, which is based on tried it seems to work, so I've kept going. And that's as I don't know, that's not even heretical, is it? That's just lazy by most scientific methods, but it's good enough for me. I'm happy with that.
Well, when was the last time you saw Dr. Carl?
Well, in the street, or actually
I mean, that's the funny thing. I mean, when we're
I don't like to talk about that because I'm actually superstitious as well. So I never say that. I never make that boast because I think it's not a good look. But suffice to say, actually, that I can tell you though, it was hilarious.
You weren't registered at the doctors; they'd unregistered.
They didn't know who I was when I went, and I went when I got made redundant, which was about 4 years ago, pretty much to Brown now. I went to the doctor because I wanted to try this thing of getting a sick note for being stressed, which is something that was kind of new to me as well. But I thought these bastards who are laying me off, you know, I should try. I should just stick it to them in any way I can, because I thought I was being treated really badly.
To be fair, you were really stressed.
Yeah, but I didn't think I was. So I went to the doctor. You probably made me go. So I was at the doctor's, and I was just waffling on, talking to him, you know, and eventually, probably because the 2 minutes were coming up, or 3 minutes, whatever long they've got. He said, "What do you actually want?" And I said, "Oh, a sick note." He said, "Okay, great. Here you go." Scribbled on a bit of paper. How long for? I don't know, a week. I didn't want to be taking the mickey too much. There, go. It's like, oh, all right. Is that how everyone does it? And that was the last time. And I can't remember the time before that. Actually, I think I took the most times I've been. Yeah, the most times I've been to hospitals and doctors is to take other people along. And that's good enough reason to see that I don't want to be in there too often. Touch wood, God willing. Thanks. Yeah. Cytherism, sound of the wind through the trees. Sorry to giggle. I'm a selenophile, lover of the moon. I didn't know that. I know that you are, but I didn't know that was the word for it. I'm an anemophile, lover of wind. A dendrophile, lover of trees. an nemophilist of forests, a logophile, a lover of words. How beautiful. Obviously, you're a logophile, lover of words, because of all the other ones there. That's fantastic, Doreen. Thank you for digging that out. Appreciate that. As I've stepped down off the mad merry-go-round of life I was living, in my later years, I've discovered that decluttering life has given me new direction and a deeper meaning in whatever I do. That is so lovely to hear, Gary. And
can I just check with you, Gary?
Yeah.
How old are you? I know that's rude to ask, but you're saying in my later years. You make it sound like you're like in your 70s.
80. Yes. Ooh, in my later years.
I'm imagining you with some really sensible slippers. And
beige.
like,
He's gone beige.
Yeah. And that doesn't match my image of you, which is that you're in your mid to late 50s. Forgive me if I've got it wrong, but
I think it's about right.
Carl started saying in my later years, I'd probably like throw a cushion at his head or something and say, "Stop it."
Yeah, I can see that actually coming. But that'll be a fitting end, because that's what my mum said she did to me when I was a kid. She tried to suffocate me when I was a baby. Yeah. So that would bring back some really bad traumatic stuff for me as I got older.
Well, it just so happens that we have a trauma expert here, Jeff Grant, and he can help you through that.
Yeah.
So Jeff is saying, if we can remain coherent and lower our cortisol production, we produce DHEA, and that slows the deterioration of our telomeres. Stress deteriorates our telomeres. When they are gone, so are we.
Wow, Jeff. And this is, I mean, I've had this ongoing conversation, quandary about emotions. And it's a big subject, but maybe we'll return to it. I'm sure we will. It's just been my great fascination all my life of the effect the emotions have on us. Now, I know it's a wide spectrum, and there's a distinction here: feelings, emotions, states of being. I don't have joy down as an emotion. I don't have love down as an emotion. I'm talking about what I want to check with you, Jeff, is with these strong states of mind that are disturbing and borderline traumatic. Are they the very things, the intense anger and resentment and the bitterness? You see, in my world, that's the work of the devil. When you get, I was talking about it this morning, wasn't I? Sort of, there's a thing called emo 19, which is very contagious, and it only takes one person in the house to have to sneeze their emo 19 on everybody else, and that is rolling downhill thereafter, and that's infecting everybody. And you want to be having a hazmat suit on or a mask with that sort of stuff. Never mind about COVID. This is the everyday life of people where they're sneezing strong emotions over each other, and it's very contagious and infectious, and it ruins people's lives, in my view. And is this the same sort of thing you're talking about, Jeff? I call it emotional terrorism, when people are very inconsiderate and take out or just put their emotions in your mix. And on the one hand, a lot of people like to give others a pass on that, don't they? So it's only to err is only human, and to have these strong emotions just shows you're a human being. Well, okay, you're welcome to it. I mean, and are people just saying that? What?
But just not near me.
Yeah, just you keep it to yourself, or be with other people who like chucking it around. So, but sorry, that's again a bit of a rant and a soapbox thing.
I think it's actually a very sensible rant, because a lot of people don't really pay much attention to emotions, like you say, and they don't realize what they're doing to themselves. In fact, Jeff has just added in a little extra. So he's saying, measuring telomere length post-mortem is the most accurate way to determine death by old age or other.
Wow.
And then being stuck in fight or flight feedback loop creates toxic personalities.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
They go rogue, and they become, like a mean version of themselves almost. They're doing
like taking your shit out on other people, taking your stuff out on other people. It's just not okay. It's understandable, and it happens, but it's not okay. It's not okay to do that, and it's become okay in our culture, isn't it, to do that? From road rage and passive aggression and all sorts of things going on. And it's
Mm.
just, it really isn't okay. It's not, it doesn't serve us, and it doesn't
Mm.
help us to live in community. But neither does repression. So
Yeah.
there's something to be discovered in this. There's a poetry to be found in the
Mm.
middle of it, of life, of of community and communication. But I think we give a, to me it's like, it's a kind of everyday Christianity. When you're joyful and divine, that's clear, and you know it, and everyone else knows it. When
Mm.
the old Diabolo has crept in and you're chucking it about, people know that as well, don't they? And the only people who put up with you in that state are people who love you, or who are scared of you, or who like to have their own go at it from time to time. So it's like, okay, yeah, that person's having their funny do. I'll have my go a little bit later on, and on it goes.
Or people that are stuck with them, who don't know how to navigate. Because often, in my experience, there are guilt throwers and guilt catchers. And so often there are people stuck in these games together. In fact, like Jason Hall is actually called it psychic vampirism.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline, I want to say we are going to come back to your comment. Sorry, looks like we've gone on and left you behind. Jeff is also saying emotions are to create a unified call to action. When we don't or can't take action, that blood chemistry becomes toxic.
So the motion part of this. So you're moved to do something.
Yeah.
And that's the point there, Jeff, is it? So your body is screaming, possibly, like, do something, get away from here, or fight, or do something like that. And when we have to choke it down through our culture, possibly, it's maybe what's being said here.
For expectations. I
Yeah.
mean, Jeff and I, we are going to be meeting up every couple of weeks to talk about his work and the incredible research that he does. And I'm hoping maybe I know we're meeting up next week, Jeff, but I'd like to talk about your stir technique. And if you could let me know
I've got one of those. I use that technique.
I can't remember what it all stands for, but it's very much is it like I might have it, somatic trauma something release or something like it. Maybe you should come on with both of us, actually. You're
I'd
saying
love that, Jeff. It'd be so nice to speak to you.
come on.
Yeah.
It'd be lovely to have your accent as well with us.
Oh yes, Jeff.
But yeah, Jeff actually works with the sort of like trauma release, and he can share so much more about it. But like, if it doesn't release it, it gets caught in the fascia. Oh, here we go. I was very close. Somatic trauma imprint release.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My stir technique is a bit like chucking a bit of mischief into the conversation and seeing what happens. It's not the same now. And I know this is going to be great, Jeff. If you can join us one evening, I'd love that, because this really shouldn't be like Spiritual Portugal, Richard and Judy, especially with me. I mean, I am going on like Richard Madeley tonight, and we definitely need interesting people to come on and change the dynamics. We're just getting warmed up, really, aren't we? In season 1, episode 3 or 4 of Spiritual Portugal, and it will become a much broader vehicle, I think, as time moves on. So, and all are welcome to come on and talk about their passions and their insights. Absolutely. Here's one from Jacqueline: to live a little longer, do volunteering. It's great with fun and laughter. It's what keeps me going. And I can see that. We've never met, have we, Jacqueline? But I see that, what a busy person you are in the community and how much you help other people. And I'm sure that must be so, well, obviously beneficial to them, the recipients of your kindness, but clearly it's something that you find great to do as well. And people often say that, don't they? It's quite a useful thing to do if you're feeling a bit down in the dumps, is get out there and help others and maybe distract yourself a little bit doing that. So good on you, Jacqueline. Appreciate it. Yeah, psychic vampires. I had a sort of something that occurred to me a few years ago. We wear psychic T-shirts, don't we? You talked about guilt throwers and guilt catchers. We're all going around with T-shirts on, really, aren't we? Like, push my buttons, or why they're there, aren't they? It's written on a level that our psyches can see and relate to each other. I think. Hold on a minute. We've moved away, haven't we? From I suppose we're still in the aging thing. It was me that kind of caused the tangent there, I think.
We've got
spiritual vampires.
we've got another comment from Gary just before we moved on.
Oh,
we
yeah.
moved on. The video I did about water and the river life analogy was an attempt to visually portray the way I often feel these days. I know where I am on that river, and that is very clear. Can we watch that sometime, Gary? I'd love to. I must have missed it off, whatever show it was on.
Yes.
I'd love to watch it from the perspective of it describing your journey right now. I think that would be really good. Maybe we could end with that. If you give us permission, maybe we could end that way.
I need to plug my power supply in. You know when you think your power supply is plugged in at one end, but it's not at the other. Blooming kids.
Yeah. So back to the conversation. So Jeff's saying spiritual vampires, and they suck the soul right out of you, don't they? Just. I was having a conversation today with Robert Jardine, who I mentioned on all the shows that I was interviewing him, and I know Jeff popped in and listened, but he was talking about the pathway to dis-ease or disease, and how shock and trauma actually precede the arrival of an illness. So if anyone actually wants to watch that or sort of explore some of these other theories about what makes us ill, it may well be worth doing. It was about an hour and 40. It was quite a long interview, but he really went into some description of it. And the theory behind it was it's called German New Medicine, and it was really discovered by Dr. Hammer. But he talks about the different kinds of you thinking Hammer Time in your head.
I'm thinking Hammer Time again,
yeah. But he really examines the brain scans of people when he was alive. He looked at all his patients and when they had an illness, and he examined their brain scans and noticed they had particular lesions or markings in their brains.
Wow.
That coincided with the type of illness that they're experiencing, and through that became this whole science. And what happens is the markers go off in the brain first, to represent a kind of shock or a trauma that you're going through, and then it leads to the symptom is released when, if you've got some shock or trauma, I think the body goes into some kind of response based on biological mammalian responses. So we are still experiencing proper. Are you bored there? You're looking a little bit. You're checking your email.
Sorry, what?
There are proper mammalian responses. So, for instance, there might be territorial things. There might be issues to doing with indigestible morsels and all sorts of different things. It doesn't sound like anything that relates to modern day health in our days, but relates to the evolution of humanity or all mammals. But there's this whole link. And once you've processed the shock, whatever mammalian trauma experience that was going on, it releases out of your system. So if one of them involves your body creating cysts for some reason, when you resolve your trauma or the shock that you've had, when you release it gets released as a set of symptoms, and that's when we think we get ill. But actually what this whole thing was saying, these illnesses are pretty much predetermined from the kind of shock you go through. So it might be worth having a look at that for any kind of long-term.
It was an amazing. I got to congratulate you. He's such a great bloke, isn't he? And it was such a good interview. So great job on that, because he is really a regular bloke, isn't he? I mean, he's so passionate and so down to earth, and it's clearly worked for him. It's such a good combination. I think Jeff's the same, right? It's been.
I'd love to get all of you.
It's been found to be true in their own existence and with incredible results. So Jeff says, I'd like to join in anytime. Jeff, can we officially book you for next Tuesday? Can we make that happen? It's a moment in the show where we can always say to anybody, see you next Tuesday, legitimately. But Jeff, if we could have you on with us, if you could indicate that, and we'll book you so that that definitely happens, that'd be really great.
I'm actually, the funny thing is I'm actually working with Jeff next Tuesday, but
Oh, so
much
maybe
bigger.
not twice then. Okay. Well, it's up to you, Jeff. I mean, if you want to hang out, it's a slightly different environment, isn't it? But you'll be breaking it. You probably won't know the Richard and Judy reference. I don't
Yeah.
know what the American equivalent would be of that, but it'd be lovely to have you on the screen with us when it suits you both, Louisa and Jeff, if you figure that out. Some people are so stressful they can actually make us ill. Toxic people in our lives, says Jacqueline. Now, this is interesting because I think you could take a sort of two-dimensional, rational view of this. Of course, life is all about chemistry, isn't it, and communication and
Yeah.
relationships. And I don't think I'm quite. I mean, clearly there are some, narcissistic psychopaths who would fit the description, who you would see on the world stage. But it's kind of like there, but for the grace of God, go. I think we've all got a little bit of that in us,
Yeah.
and the relationships we have with people, kind of, so how I relate to people and how you relate to people, for example, will be different, wouldn't it? You'll have proclivities and traumas that are different to mine that will attract a different kind of personality who you will experience as toxic. That same person to me, for example, might not be. And
Yeah.
the same for everybody here in this audience. It's, I think it can be easy to sort of diagnose other people, can't it? And say, that there's a toxic person. I mean, we're all toxic, I think, in some sense, which is exactly what we're saying tonight, isn't it? Is that we've all been through traumas, and in the right or the wrong circumstances, that will come out in a bad way. And a particular person or a particular set of people will just think we're the worst. Whereas if we've put ourselves in a better kind of echo chamber and hang out with similar narcissists or whatever, then we won't seem so bad. So I think it's quite nuanced, isn't it? That there are clearly some definitely strong characters about, and these are the people who it's said about them they don't suffer fools gladly and all that sort of stuff, and we know who they are. But I think we're all prone to it, subject to it, can be like that as well. And completely agree with you, Jacqueline. And I think it's quite a nuanced thing, really. Gary, continuing, life made me a survivalist, and it's taken 57 years to finally slow down and listen. Oh, Mozzie attack. To my inner being that has been with me. My power animal, Gary, just as I'm reading out your comment, my power animal appeared, the mosquito. It's a sign. Across the years there, generally guiding me towards this phase of my life. Hopefully I can knock a few more years out of this journey because it's fabulous. How lovely. Now this brings us back round, doesn't it, to the joy of aging possibly here. I was hoping to get to this. Here's Gary enjoying maturity in a way that and this is the great irony of life, isn't it? It's like, that youth is wasted on the young because they have their nubility. Is that a word? That they are fit, well and healthy. They never have to think about anything too much in terms of how well their bodies are performing. There are obviously exceptions to that, but generally speaking, we take a lot more things for granted, don't we, when we're younger? And then experience and knowing that things are a bit more fragile possibly can help this sentiment, perhaps, that we can hope for a few more years because we're really starting to enjoy our lives in a different way, because we're so insecure when we're young as well, aren't we? I mean, I don't know if this is everybody's experience, but at the times of my life where I kind of had everything, I'm not sure I made the most of it because I was just thinking all the time, or worried about all the time, or neurotic basically, because that was the world I lived in, and I think that's most people's world in the world here that we're talking about. And then it takes some years, doesn't it, to rub those edges off and think to yourself, why was I ever worried about such nonsense? And then you're free of it, aren't you? You're free in these later years to embrace a much more wholesome, hopefully a wholesome way of being. And I'm thinking, if that's the case, if life seems so much better in your 50s than it did in your 40s, and you thought it was pretty good in your 40s, I thought the 40s was the best decade of my life. And that because that's when I met you, it was. I thought being 40 was great, and in my 40s was great, and now in my 50s it's even better. Why shouldn't that continue in a certain sort of way if we can attenuate this culture thing of like, oh, you're getting old, age doesn't come alone. This is a propaganda. that we're subject to that I think is getting in the way of the very thing Gary's talking about here.
Mm. Wow, we've got some great comments coming in. Can I really love what you're saying there, in response to Gary's message. I've got to share this one because I love this. Sometimes I'm the king on my own chessboard and sometimes I'm a pawn on
Yes,
someone else's. Isn't that so true?
it happens.
And also, a very good point, Carl. We all play different roles at different times to different people. We really do. We have different hats on, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think Jeff has said he's going to come on.
Woohoo!
I think that's what he's saying.
Oh,
Yes,
can't wait. Can't wait. Both Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. Fantastic, Jeff. Thank
that
you.
was really, really amazing. And Jim
Yeah.
White joining us saying, Bon dia, Louisa and Carl. So that's very cool. And he's also adding, there's something to be said about emotional contagion. We do pick up other vibes sometimes. It's so true.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that because my parents, as I was growing up, were very emotional people, and that's all I knew, and I don't blame them or have any ill feeling about that. It's just as fact, and I can see that the sort of conditions that creates, and how children, how I as a child responded to that. It shapes your personality, doesn't it, to be around that sort of thing? And they had their own battles to fight with each other and themselves and the world, etc. Because they're like everyone else, we're all doing our best, aren't we? And we've all got our funny ways, but in this context of strongly emotional behavior, the anger, the explosiveness, that's doing something to the person who's having those outbursts, right? That's doing something to the people in their surroundings, as you say there, Jim. Others' vibes, whether they be sweet or sour. We are that Chinese meal, And Jim, how's it going? Have you managed to sell those copies of What the Bleep yet? Are you thinking to yourself, these are going to be spiritual classics? I'm going to hold on to them until they're worth a fortune, or are they going to be left at bus stops and on trains as random acts of kindness for other people? Oh, look at this. Doreen Resch studied neurology, very intrigued by the many studies revealing that intermittent fasting amazingly maintains brain health. I guess that's how we were, right? Before there was a cafe every 100 yards in Portugal. You would have had to go without food until some appeared. And that's intermittent fasting, isn't it? Slows aging processes, increases neuroplasticity, improves memory, and more. Isn't that amazing? That your body, your body has to respond to being hungry. And that moment, what's that condition called where you start eating your own fat reserves rather than?
I'm just trying to remember. It's something like autophagy.
Yeah, autophagy.
Autophagy.
Autophagy. Yeah.
Because apparently when your body starts eating itself, it earmarks your defunct cells. So anything that can't replicate properly, anything with faulty DNA or anything that's just really tired and whatnot, it eats that, so that when basically so you can regenerate. It eats its old stuff, create new energy, and then autophagy.
And isn't that a great system?
Yeah, I mean, when I learned about it, just before Solomon, I got pregnant with Solomon, I was working my way into intermittent fasting so that I could experience autophagy and have like 3-day fasts once a month. I was watching a series of documentaries about fasting, and it suggested that to maintain optimum health, like a 3-day fast once a month was really, really good. And then after a few years you could just do it like once a quarter and then once every 6 months, and it was so good that you were just like getting rid of your old cells that were knackered and like busted and it just helped to smooth things over, like really good for like healing things like cancer and stuff like that.
Well, it's a remarkable thing, isn't it? Because if you
I will do it.
if you compare and contrast those two states, so ancient physiology, there's no food around. There's no food around. My body is going to reach autophagy at some point, and eat the debris and process the debris. Or in the modern age, I'm not even hungry, and I'm going to go to the pasteleria and just bung some more sugar and stuff because I like it. And interestingly, I think our appetite and taste is all around here, isn't it? Or even in the past, it's all to do with emotions again. It's about making food choices that kind of meet cravings and calm feelings down, rather than eating from the belly. The idea of like standing in front of food and listening to your body, what your body might want, which is possible also in Portugal, to be fair, because of all the fresh food in the markets and stuff. I mean, that's presumably why markets are so popular for human beings, is that it's a full sensory experience, isn't it? And if we're allowed, our bodies can buy the food as well as our minds and our emotions in that sort of environment. Whereas marketed food, the Happy Meal being the great example, right? Why would you refer to a meal as being an emotional state rather than what nutrition it delivers? It's not called a healthy meal, is it? Interestingly, because no one wants that. No kid's going to want that.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah.
Doreen, I interviewed a lady back in, I think, May, called Christiana Eltrean, and she, I want to call her a breatharian, but that's not strictly true. She calls herself somebody who follows the pranic path. And the reason why she doesn't call herself a breatharian is that she gives herself the choice to eat sometimes and sometimes drink. But by and large, she has been a breatharian, i.e. living off fresh air and a little bit of water, pretty much, I think, for a decade or possibly longer. And she is so young in her approach. Her skin is like crystal clear. And she, every now and again, like if a child offers her something to eat, she will eat it really consciously, and rather than thinking about the taste, and Carl was talking about the taste all being here, she talks about noticing the vibration of it, because she doesn't have all these things going into her body, so she doesn't she's so clear that when she takes something, she understands maybe the vibration that it's causing emotionally for her. But she lives such a kind of clear life. And I know there's been lots of brain studies done about like the brain waves and the entrainment that you're in as a breatharian. And yeah, the interview that I did with her, I think sort of explains a lot more about it. But one of the amazing things that she spoke about is that, if she doesn't eat during a day, she pretty much can't sleep at night. And she doesn't need to. She will... she will get her knitting out, or she will write a book, or she has so much energy. And when she was describing it, to me, it sounded like how I felt as a child, when you were at that age of feeling like a superhero, where you get up, you bounce out of bed, and you just feel, yeah, I can do this. And you just feel so much stronger than ever. And that's how I felt as a child. And that's how she feels now. And she's not as old as me. I think she's in her late 30s. Forgive me, Christiana, if I've got that wrong. But yeah, if you're interested in that, you might like that interview. But yeah, a bit of a plug there. But it was a really sort of, it made me think, breatharianism.
Yes, indeed. Never far away from that as an interesting sort of topic to consider. You two, thanks, Gary, for this. You two are so good together. You are obviously great parents and skilled presenters, but also you are able to talk to each other in a connective and intelligent way, which is very important, because some people are just so stuck on being parents and very little else. You still have to maintain the person, or it all comes apart. This is our date night, Gary. It's so sad in a way that this is the night that we spend together with you. But it really works for us. It honestly does. It's very energizing and a really something great to look. I was up at 6 this morning, up at 5 this morning.
We were both up at 5 this morning.
Yeah, doing a conference call. And I'm just thinking, there are times, on a Tuesday afternoon when I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this tonight. And, that's part of getting older. I just say to myself, oh, shut up. And I know I can do it if I need to. That's definitely something that comes with age, right? It's just so energizing and so nice to do this Tuesdays and sometimes Saturdays now. And thank you for your comments there. But we wouldn't miss it, would we? It's and you make it possible by being there at the other end, which is lovely too. As is Jacqueline, who says, "Great show tonight." That's the sort of encouragement we love, and we don't need much. We really don't need much encouragement. So Jeff's in next Tuesday. My honour. Got to go though. Love you guys. Love you too, Jeff. If you haven't gone already, Jim, they're an investment. Yes, that's right. The old What the Bleep CDs. They are. DVDs. Maturity triumphing over the adversity of our youth. I hope so, don't you, Simon? I mean, from what you were saying to us before, it's certainly you've got a new look on your life, haven't you? And a contrast that's going on that seems to be nourishing and feeding you right now. Why should that stop? Ever walk in a room and get its collective mood? Every day at school, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes, into the open prison of school. So no mopagee. That's good, isn't it? That's a diet plan there. It's no more pudgy, no mopagee.
Oh, yes, of course.
Autophagy is like pruning yourself.
That's
so true, Cindy, isn't it? That's a really excellent way of looking at it, Cindy B. You're welcome to do with the video as you wish. It's there for everyone. However, it's a very personal view of exactly what is possible when you lay down the conventional and let the possible into your mind. So probably what I'll do there.
You have to come on our show as well.
For sure, Gary. And we'll do a segment. If I can sandwich your video with our bits of our conversation and some of the lovely feedback you got, which was well deserved, that might be a really nice thing to spin in or add to our channel as well. Because I'd love to see other video makers in the Spiritual Portugal channel, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you and Doreen have watched those same.
Most likely.
I would say so. What was it? The 35 hours of anti-cancer videos back to back. Yay!
I've been on like dental hygiene, like 20 hours worth, and like all sorts of different things.
That's right.
To learn
ride your power animal to freedom 12-hour webinar.
No,
she didn't do that one. I'm thinking of doing that one.
Related.
Yep. Sometimes before a Zoom call, I think I can never do it until the camera comes on. Lights, camera, action, Jim. There is energy on the screen, and That's right. That's right. There is. I mean, even here, Jim. I think maybe the point you're making there is not. This is a room of a kind, isn't it? And we. This is such a lovely vibe. It's energizing.
Yeah, but do you know what? You didn't see it literally before we went live, because about 2 minutes before we went live, I couldn't even get into this studio. And so Carl came into this room, was like, oh, which profile you're on? And I was sat there stony faced.
There
yes,
she was.
I can't connect my camera.
Do you want to recreate that now?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
that was at the top of the hour. Amazing. Well, we've outstayed our welcome again. It's 1:15 the midnight hour. Thank you so much. I've got a couple more things to share about aging, which seems only right because that's what the program was meant to be about. Katia Lima, Facebook friend, never met her in real life, but a lovely part of our community, a great help to expats, and I think a bit of a new ager on the QT as well. This is Kurosawa. She said, just came across this on Instagram and it's inspiring to say the least. So this is the Japanese filmmaker Kurosawa writing a message to his Swedish counterpart filmmaker Bergman. Please let me congratulate you. I think it was Bergman's Swedish, right? Upon your 70th birthday. Your work deeply touches my heart every time I see it. And I have learned a lot from your works and have been encouraged by them. I would like you to stay in good health to create more wonderful movies for us. In Japan, there was a great artist called Tessai Tomioka who lived in the Meiji era, the late 19th century. This artist painted many excellent pictures while he was still young, and when he reached the age of 80, he suddenly started painting pictures which were much superior to the previous ones, as if he were in magnificent bloom. Every time I see his paintings, I fully realize that a human is not really capable of creating really good works until he reaches 80. A human is born a baby, becomes a boy, goes through youth, the prime of life, and finally returns to being a baby before he closes his life. This is in my opinion, the most ideal way of life. I believe you would agree that a human becomes capable of producing pure works without any restrictions in the days of his second babyhood. Wow. So not the helpless baby, but the unrestricted and unconditional baby, right? I am now 77 years old, says Kurosawa here, and I'm convinced that my real work is just beginning. Let us hold out together. How cool is that?
Oh, that's so beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about. And Paul Richards also sent something in. There's hope for us all. 80-year-old Yuichiro Miura claims new Everest record. An 80-year-old what is it about the Japanese? They eat well, don't they? They have a culture that I think, I don't know, there's some kind of repression, it seems, there. But there's also some marvelous things, aren't there, in terms of diet and culture and lifestyle. But anyway, this 80-year-old Japanese mountaineer has become the oldest person to reach the summit of Mount Everest, despite despite a history of heart problems. Yuichiro Miura who climbed Everest when he was 70 and then again at 75, reached the peak early on Thursday morning. But it is a record that could be short-lived, as Tom Bailey reports. So this sounds like someone over 80 is headed that way. But fair play to old Yuichiro Miura, 80-year-old, who's claimed a new Everest record, reaching the summit of Mount Everest there. That is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
As they say in Portugal.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're a spring chicken, Mr. Austin, at 57. What are you thinking? It's others' perception of aging, says Kate, that is of some concern. Not my experience, not in capital letters. When I uprooted to Portugal in my 60s, my friends thought I was losing it. However, when I abandoned my steady pensionable career in my late 40s to follow my healing gift, they thought that too. We're going to have Kate on talking about her healing gift in the book she's written. So much is attitude. I'll have to catch up tomorrow to hear other experiences. Can't make it tonight. I hope you have an enlightened experience, Carl. Well, we certainly have, Kate. And hello to you, Kate, when you hear this tomorrow or now. It's my journey into old age, says Penny. And anyone who thinks I should look younger, dress older, cut my hair, or any other such shit can bog off. can bog right off, says Penny Albertella, as you might expect. Sorry, her language, not mine. Sage or Beige is a great title, says Justice Hayes. Hello, Justice, if you tuned in at some point. And Bill Taylor. Finally, it might not be all bad, or it might be, depending on circumstances and also outlook. And there's the thing. We're not going to know, are we? And I'm not saying this for any guarantees or anything, but it's intention and spirit, isn't it, that we can go into this with, and a broadened outlook, so that we might be like the Kurosawa, making baby-like films or having a baby-like consciousness at 77, or like the 80-year-old mountaineer there. So much to look forward to. I mean, Gary, 57, 23 years until you get to 80. That is imagine if you think back to what you achieved in your first 23 years. You grew from a little baby, from an egg, into a 23-year-old person. That's an incredible span, isn't it? And human experience. So 23 more years just to get to 80. And then there's even more after that, I think. And the comments are still coming in. Do you want to do these, love?
Yeah, okay. Yes, there's a lot, actually. A lot of people saying good night and God bless and all that. So
they're giving us a hint.
Yeah. They're kind of signposting for us. So Jacqueline said, good night and thank you, as has Mark. Thank you very much. Jim is sharing, have you seen the video called Celebrate What's Right with the World? It's inspiring about how our point of view influences our behavior and what we can do to adjust our moods, which I think is really important and pertinent. He's also saying, lovely show, thank you.
Cheers,
and he's
Jim.
also said, I'm 77 and coming to see you in Portugal. EIVING willing. What's that
That's
mean?
EI, that's Gilda and the VFS processing system.
Okay.
Well, fingers
Okay.
crossed, Jim. Hats off to you, mate. And we must have a party when you arrive, and
Yeah.
that is news. That is newsworthy, isn't it? Uprooting and moving country.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean to be patronising. It's just a fact, isn't it? Not many 77-year-olds would countenance, even consider that, and there you are doing it. So hats off to you, and let's get you in the Portuguese papers if you're up for it when you get here, and the American papers, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. And then Fiona and Simon are saying, when you've been hurt, you learn to heal. Once you've grown, you can show others they're not alone, which I think
Yeah,
is
well
good.
said.
And I think, was there another one? Yes, you can read this out, seeing as your pronunciation's better than mine.
Oh, nice, thank you. Obrigado, pessoal. Ótimo show. So thanks,
Very
peeps. Thanks, peeps. Great show, basically, there. Thank you very much for
much.
that, Simon. That's great. As my old pa used to say,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
we're
Go
playing
on.
the same game here. As my old pa used to say, it's time to climb the wooden hill to Bedfordshire. I'm normally up at about 5 and have another bedroom to paint in the morning. He doesn't stop. I will bid you good night. I will bid you good night as well, sir, and an adieu. I will raise your good night with an adieu and an adieu. Dream sweet and marvel at the next rising sun. Love to you guys. Oh, right
Oh,
back
love
at
you,
you.
Melinda.
Igualmente, yeah, love to you and Linda over there. I agree, and I'm the same age as Gary. I still feel like a kid because it's the body that's aging, isn't it? It doesn't have to be the mind, does it? And the spirit is ageless, isn't it? The spirit is aware and ageless, timeless. Mind, a little bit of leeway. Body, definitely changing with time. I still feel like a kid, but have been dealing with aging anxieties lately. Oh, Doreen, you're in the right place. My remedy is to go to the mercado, where different vendors have called me Nina. There's a
Oh, so
strategy.
nice, isn't it?
There's your strategy there. Go there. Go there. It's all about context. Definitely.
Cindy's saying, I'm with you, Penny. So whatever
Yeah.
Penny said, which was really kind of sassy, yeah, she's with you.
Right.
Gary's saying, I like to think I'm more Magnolia. Magnolia as opposed to what? I can't remember what.
Beige. Instead of
Oh, yeah,
beige.
yeah, yeah. Cindy's saying, muito obrigada. It was great again. We've got a good night from Jim. Thanks for what you do. And a new one from Andrew Sanders. Hey, Carl, really enjoyed the show. As a recent cancer sufferer, I'm glad I tuned
Oh,
in.
mate.
You're doing
That's
well.
that is Andrew who I met at Phonic FM in Exeter.
Oh,
Sorry,
wow.
and also West Town gardener up at West Town Farm.
Wow.
And I mean, an amazing fella, absolutely amazing, inspirational fella. Great, does great work, volunteer, and just a good egg, all round good egg. And sorry to hear of your
Yeah.
cancer there, Andrew, and hope you've put it behind you now. And it's all it's going in the right direction for you. Glad you tuned in. I'm glad you tuned in as well, and we are doing well. Thank you, Andrew. It was always a good giggle because he and a chap called John Wright and Gervais as well, of course, used to do the show before me. That's where I met Gervais at Phonic FM too, who ends up being in Portugal as well from time to time. Funny old world, isn't it? And it was the handover. So you have a special kind of relationship with the people who are on the show before you, and that's where I met Andrew, and of course I got to know Andrew with the fantastic West Town Farm, an amazing community enterprise. That's not Martin Bragg, that's his brother, isn't it? Do you remember the handsome Mr. Farmer Bragg?
Oh,
Who
yes, I definitely
your
remember him.
yes,
My
the
mum
blue-eyed
definitely remembers
farmer.
him.
Oh, your mum was weak at the
Really
knees,
nice.
wasn't she? When she saw Farmer Bragg up there.
He's
So
very dashing.
that's Andy Bragg, I think, an amazing model of sustainability, environmentalism at West Ham Farm. I hope everything's going well over there, Andrew. So yeah, I hope maybe see you next Tuesday or give us a buzz. It'd be great to catch up with you. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Absolutely wonderful to see you there. And Spiritual Portugal is saying, this is Penny's quote. There you go. It's worth repeating it. Do you want to do it in your voice?
Okay, it's my journey into old age, and anyone who thinks I should look younger, dress older, cut my hair, or any other such shit can bog right off.
Bog right off. There you go. And so good we've printed it 4 times there. Hey, mate, shit happens. Still got it. And halfway through chemo, lung cancer. So, oh, mister, that sounds really kind of painful and difficult and awful. But I don't know what else to say. Love to you. Love to
Yeah.
you, from the hearts of our bottoms and bottoms of our hearts here, mate. And all the best with your process there. Wow. Well, lots of love to you and to Exeter. Wow. And 77 is the new 56. Go right. Remember where you heard it first. And love to you too from Andrew there, over there in Exeter. I'm guessing you're still in Exeter there, Andrew, in wonderful, beautiful Devon.
So
Um,
I've really enjoyed this show. Thank you so much for inviting me on to talk about sage and beige, Carl. I was
yes,
kind of like, not sure if I want to talk about that, but it's great.
it is the start of a journey for me, I've got to say. If I can play my little video one more time. Here we go. Roll VT.
So is that what you're going to do? You're going to be
I think
looking at
it's a what do they call it? What's it called? A side hustle.
Mm,
It's something that brings together a lot of what I've been interested in all the time. The meditation, running a natural health center, how people tick, how people work, and it's happening to me. And I'm
mm.
thinking, well, I'm doing some
Oh,
physical stuff with Ian Turner. We're
yeah,
going to be doing Growing Old Disgracefully, which is a few
yeah.
sort of physical exercise things. I think the mindfulness and the meditation is an important part of it. Attitude is so important, as we've discovered and discussed tonight, right? And
Mm,
and fun, having fun with it as well. Experimenting with a year off the booze. What's that going to be like? I'm nearly 2 months in now. It's just whizzed past, or is it 1 month? No, it's going to be 2 months soon, isn't it? And
mm,
it just whizzes by. That's the most staggering thing about having a year off drinking is I'm already 2 months into it. It just shows you how fast life goes by, and that therein lies another aspect of this. And how can we grow old disgracefully? How can we grow old gracefully? And it's an ongoing conversation, and we're in it together, aren't we? Because no one's going to escape that. Of course, as long as we're here, we're getting older, and the older we get, the more poignant it seems to be, and the more pithiness and power possibly, and depth and profundity there might be, if we can move ourselves away from the gloom and doom propaganda of aging, and
mm,
more into, it's slightly on the agenda, isn't it? Eldership,
mm.
what it might be to be an amazing older person and be a gift to society as a result. So it's work in progress, but I think an interesting conversation to be having.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation to be having very regularly. To make
Yeah.
sure that we can do it together,
Yes.
as
Yes.
Jim says.
Yeah. Okay. And George Ruth, Andrew Saunders, I'm drawn to you, my beloved. Send me a friend request for your accurate reading and guide. Bless. That sounds like a little bit of spamming going on there, Andrew.
And some more there as well.
George, stop it. You're very welcome to the show, but not getting up to nonsense like that. Okay, I think we know what you're up to there. You're going to get yourself banned quite soon. We're having a bit of a love-in among friends here, and I think you might be about to spoil it with some cynical selling of services there. So behave yourself.
I wonder what kind of readings they are.
I don't know. I don't know. I hope they're better than my energy readings that I gave last week. Together we can do it. And it's time to give back as well. That's another view on it as well, because the volunteering came up, didn't it? But maybe we become mirrors if we're lucky as we get older. We maybe become less projector and more mirror as we get older. There, gas and electric readings. I did it, Andrew. I did it. I gave some readings, free energy readings last week. You'd have loved it. All right, let's leave it there. And we'll see you again probably on Saturday, right? And
Yeah.
certainly next Tuesday when we'll be back with the wonderful Jeff. Okay. Should we let's play
Fantastic.
out let's play out with some wind in the willows in the tree outside and Doreen's beautiful home here. I think it's her home. And this wonderful view. This is how you can live in Portugal, folks. Thanks to Doreen for this.